You know, it's funny. This so called game of life doesn't always pan out the way we intend it to. At one time or another, you may have had huge aspirations to change your field of expertise for a greater good. These aspirations come in various shapes with quite a few variables attached to them. They often vary in severity, separated by degrees of challenge, if you will, that must often be overcome to fulfill those goals. In some instances, these challenges become so large in stature, you don't realize the size they've snowballed to, causing them to become even greater to overcome. When the dust settles, perhaps these timely events occurred outside your control, the moment the universe decided to derail you from destiny. Hey y'all, listen, sometimes when life hands you lemons, you just gotta make lemonade. Well, unless you're thrown a curveball and wind up with a lime tree, then you're shit out of luck. The point I'm trying to drive home with all of this is that in the event you're staring down the face of adversity, remaining optimistic can indeed be resourceful, using that outcome to build something special from a unique situation, and in some rare instances, it may even pan out for the better. When it comes to today's story, I believe there's some validity to this, as watching this little gem over time, I felt an aura begin to blossom around it, as if the unforeseeable events circling this release has become a second marketing campaign in itself, giving this entry a cult classic appeal about it. And well, if you think it's straight up hot garbage, it still has a certain sunsoft quality about it I believe will eventually win you over. I mean, even the absolute bottom of the barrel releases from Sunsoft have something interesting to say about them, which is why I'm probably drawn to this a little bit more than I should be. Besides, a title with the name journeytosilius attached to it sounds far more intriguing than the Terminator, right? I mean, that's not to say I don't love the movies, but coming from the perspective of a 90s kid looking to purchase an NES game with a movie license attached to it, how many Indiana Jones adventures did we end up with while going down this path? We saw how messy it got when differentiating them apart. So at this point, a planet named Silius residing in a far-off galaxy sounds pretty metal to me. This particular Sunsoft release instantly drew me in due to namesake alone. So then, when Judgment Day approaches, I'm gonna have to make an exception to the rule and look past Hollywood's stamp of approval. I gotta go with the brand I trust more often than less, because when I think of a world full of mad machinery, I go back to that fateful day I found 8-bit salvation, the day I crash landed onto a tiny little planet known as Silius. Now, while en route to reach our destination, I like to reminisce just a bit about a time way back when speculation surrounding this game's development was running rampant, as the many prominent talking heads at this time often theorized how this release came to be. A salvage title at its core, slated to be a Terminator title upon conception. Back in 1988, Sunsoft was in talks to bring James Cameron's 1984 film The Terminator to Nintendo's mighty home entertainment system. With the 90s vastly approaching, Sunsoft still saw a great deal of potential in a video game adaptation of the film, or perhaps they were just in awe of the 7-time Mr. Olympia. Richard Robbins, whom would take on the role of Vice President of Sunsoft of America, would acquire the license from Rand Marlis, founder of Creative Licensing Corporation. Well, what better timing, because T2 would begin filming late 1990, which was right around the corner, and by now, Arnold was looking to take over Hollywood the same way he did atop the bodybuilding stage. Development of the game went in the works sometime in late '88, led by Sunsoft's development staff in Japan. A pint-sized staff by numbers, but mighty in delivery, a cast that over time would go on to make some of the very best games the NES had to offer. As development for this all-new Terminator took off, it would be led by two key players, one whom worked behind the scenes under the alias Vegas, while the other being identified as Chow Musao. On the programming side, the project was headed by Masahito Nomura, credited for one Sunsoft title in particular I'm quite fond of. And don't forget Hiroaki Higashi, who brought us the iconic Sunsoft Batman, one of the very best platformers released on the NES. Oh, and by the way, if you ever wondered who composed this masterful chiptune performance, look no further than Naoki Kodaka, whom composed some of Sunsoft's greatest sounds for well over a decade. We can thankfully confirm these events today due to an article published by Gaming Alexandria surfacing back in 2020, so we now have a far better understanding of how these events unfolded, presenting us with new documented findings, promotional materials, and various interviews conducted. I'll include a link in my video for the article if you wish to look into things further. According to the article, the Sunsoft team had to adhere to strict guidelines placed upon them by the licensing holder as it pertained to Arnold's on-screen character, story plot, and in-game mechanics. The guidelines placed on the team were met with an absorbent amount of restrictions, as Arnold could not die in-game at any moment in time other than the events leading up to the movie's finale, where our menacing T-800 gets crushed. To make things even more messy, there could be no other in-game enemies other than the Terminator itself, so Arnold would essentially be hunting you down across each act of the game. I'm not too sure what they were expecting at this point, but it didn't sound like this would have wound up to be much of an action game. It sounds more like a clock tower game, and we didn't get our first release of that until the Super Famicom. I don't think Sunsoft was in the market to make a survival horror title this early in the game. We would in fact get our very first glimpse of the game at the Winter Consumer Electronics Show of 1989. How do we know this? Well, we did in fact get a few features in some of our favorite gaming publications growing up. There was a small mention in the very first issue of GamePro magazine, along with some additional screenshots shown in the Pack Watch section of our July-August issue of Nintendo Power in '89. These, funny enough, had some unique screenshots of the game not shown at the event. From the looks of the promotional material from the event, this new Sunsoft game felt every bit as box office as the '84 movie shaped up to be. However, here's where things soon begin to go off the rails. As the title continued to be worked on back in Japan, no design input was given from the US branch at Sunsoft, and although there were many hardware challenges in place, that didn't appear to be holding the team back from proceeding forward with their plans. To capture that gritty feel of the Terminator's on-screen presence, the team's original thought process was to make a game in the style of something like a Dragon's Lair, where the Laserdisc medium allowed for a cinematic presentation, much like we would see through the animated cutscenes, allowing players to engage in interactive choose-your-own-adventure scenarios, or should I say, choose-your-own fate. A game of this caliber would be damn near impossible on the family computer, requiring a significant amount of resources to achieve this feat. As the list of requirements stacked up, it didn't appear as if management was fronting the bill any further from here. Nomura would go on to describe these events in more detail, stating that they were not able to make a full-length game with the available memory, nor did management want to spend additional funds. Therefore, these original plans were scrapped, and the team was forced to start over. A few short months would pass, and a finished build would make its way into the hands of Rand Marlis at CLC, but it wasn't what he expected it to be. According to the interview, Rand would go on to explain that the license was revoked due to the game's story plot not following the original film canon. Ironically, the game would take place in an unspecified future time when Skynet completely took over as the machines would begin to launch an all-out assault on Earth. So I'm gonna theorize here and now and say this would essentially be Sunsoft's take on Judgment Day. I actually really like this angle, but apparently some didn't. Marlis would go on to talk about this decision a bit more in detail, stating in quotes, "It's unusual to not show anything until a product is finished. It's more common to first come to CLC with a concept to show what you're going to do and to see if it is within the parameters they would accept." Yeah, you don't say. Well, it sure is unfortunate hearing this news, but thankfully we have people like Richard that, from everything I've read up on regarding him and his father, Joseph Robbins, they were highly influential figures in the industry, going as far back as the 50s, so I need to dive deeper into their time at Sunsoft for an upcoming episode. Thanks to Richard, we have a great deal of this material archived, and it's extremely helpful for gathering historical data on the matter. It's also great seeing the potential of this project. I could just imagine some of the ideas Sunsoft would have dreamt up, especially with how well their marketing campaign turned out. There was even a full reveal trailer on display, giving fans a small glimpse into the storied events that would have taken place. We would in fact eventually get both an NES Terminator and T2 game for the NES, but their fate were unfortunately left to their makers, and well, the rest was history, folks. Hasta la bye-bye. Inevitably, Sunsoft would lose Arnold for good. However, the spirit of this title wasn't, as they would indeed be back with their own Terminator. rebranding the game a few times over until it eventually had the perfect ring to it to coincide with the now repackaged cutscenes and character designs, allowing Sunsoft to give birth to a brand new hero. Not one seeking protection from those metallic muscles, but one ready to terminate the opposition, now locked and loaded for a special delivery. Back in Japan, Sunsoft would release their repackaged Terminator for the Famicom under the new title Rough World, depicted across the title screen with the phonetic symbols RAF. Oh wow, I thought this was a code name for the development hell they endured. Oh, and before we continue onward, I thought it'd be interesting to point out that the last two Sunsoft titles I reviewed just so happened to be released as a compilation package for the PS1 under the Sunsoft Memorial Series right alongside Hebereki. Look at that, the stubby little son of a bitch is trying to steal the spotlight again, huh? Nevertheless, this incarnation of our story is every bit a spiritual successor. Shoot, this is my Terminator 3, only better gang, finding the new John Connor 2.0 rocking a cybernetic coat of future tech, looking like he hit up the probotectors before embarking on this journey across space. However, underneath all that shiny armor is a man we would soon come to know here in the States as Jay McCrae. Well, according to the Sunsoft calendar, we've journeyed to the year 373, a future time across deep space. Due to the Earth's increasing population rates, mankind was forced to pivot, discovering a way to harvest resources outside their planet, looking for residency across the universe by establishing space colonies, mankind's very own galactic timeshares that Sunsoft would call a space paradise. These space colonies are designed by the most renowned scientists of their generation. One of these brilliant minds just so happens to have a son by the name of Jay, whom eagerly looks to follow in his father's footsteps, has dreams to one day work alongside his father on this very colony. The Silius solar system is home to Space Colony 428, which is still far from being finished and where Jay's father is stationed alongside his colleagues who are hard at work looking to create a greater future for mankind. The SSS colony, huh? I knew that looked familiar. However, in a strange turn of events, an unforeseen disturbance occurs on the colony at the team's assignment site, sparking a chain reaction that sends the colony into flames, killing the research team on impact along with their progress. Crippled by the discovery of his father's passing, Jay decides to follow in his father's footsteps, continuing his research where he left off. Shortly after his father's passing, Jay decides to take a trip over to his father's old residency in hopes to find any lost blueprints pertaining to the space colony. Searching the room over thoroughly, he finds a floppy disk with these recovery files attached, along with a cryptic message from his father requesting his research be finished in the event a terrorist strike takes his life. Taken back by these discoveries, Jay looks to get to the bottom of his father's murder, protecting the very remains of the colony's research at all costs. As he sets out on a mission across the space colony to track down the mysterious organization that put the hit out on the research team. So, strap in because it's going to be a rocky ride ahead as we look to take a journey back to Silius and discover the dangers that lies in the deepest, darkest depths of these space ruins. Let me be the first to say, John Connor ain't got shit on Jay McKay, because again, the dude ain't hiding behind no freaky-footed android to prevent Judgment Day. Hell nah, he is Judgment Day, especially for the tech geeks that put his pops out of business, now strapped up with an array of heavy artillery that would make Bill Reiser proud. These aren't some hand-me-down rifles you get by picking off a couple slick snipers chilling in the jungles. No, this dude earns his stripes, simply battle-tested to receive your prize. You're touched down onto the withered ruins of Space Station Silius, where it appears the machines have now gone offline. Only time has passed, allowing those AI algorithmic models to continue learning till the day they become sentient. The more advanced models are indeed hardwired with the most advanced tactile combat strategies, so you need to count your steps in advance before placing these targets in your crosshairs. This ain't a run and gun and run some more adventure. You'll be frozen in your tracks more often than less, looking for the underlying pattern across these rapid fire attacks, ducking below or picking them off from afar to find the appropriate clearance to switch between your firepower, requiring a bit of dexterity and conditioning by those thumbs to fire off some clean streams to light up these metal monsters. Your standard handgun and shotgun will get the job done early, but keep in mind this is essentially a Skynet ambush, so don't take these clunky T1 bootlegs for granted. Jay has just as much dexterity in his step as any faithful commando, only he's a pretty large target when moving through this particular space colony. Be sure to trace your steps and pivot accordingly, putting the right pep in your step as you twist and turn through the air, unloading on your target. Remember, we don't have any Konami codes here, so protect your hide at all times if you wish to survive. You have your work cut out for you, and if you wish to proceed deeper inside this destination, you're gonna need some stronger firepower to break through these defenses, so go to work at dissecting these armored tin cans for the parts needed to upgrade your rifle, as you soon get rewarded with that sweet machine gun. However, before you can proceed forward, you'll need to test it out with a little gunplay, as you'll soon uncover some freaky findings deep inside the descending helicopter. Yeah, backup hasn't come to rescue us here. They've come to drop some tiny organic hybrids below, crawling across the pavement and rounding about the room, jumping off the walls like tiny facehuggers, looking to mate with your face. Silius does a great job creating that unsettling atmosphere right from the opening act, painting the real feel of a world overrun by machines, which perhaps might be our fate if we don't start watching real human content, opposed to those 30-second AI videos the algorithm tries to recommend us to watch. So remember, my human brethren, we gotta stick together and keep our YouTube community strong before we become the play toys for the machine world. Again, you could definitely tell this feels like the Sunsoft Terminator sequel that never was, treating us to a future timeline where the hero had fallen, a desolate, abandoned colony, now overrun by the inmates themselves, that being the machine world which roams the inner sectors. Remember when I told you we would explore our firepower a little bit more in depth? Well, deep inside these tight confined areas would be a great place to start. You'll find a great deal of unique targets here, which will require you to optimize your military strategy, switching between your weapons accordingly to find what's best for battle ahead. Oh, and FYI, you're not getting any rapid fire add-ons here, you're getting rapid deletion of your rounds until you're able to locate more, so be mindful of this and plan your shots accordingly, as all your upgraded weapons share a single clip between them, defaulting back to your standard handgun when you're completely out. This sounds a bit extreme, especially in confined spaces like these inner remains, yet you'll get a decent amount of health and ammo drops coming in the form of these red and blue capsules. Red adding to your ammunition, while blue adds some much needed stock to your defenses. So fortunately, you don't have to choose between these color-coded capsules, as if you're entering the Matrix, just gobble up whatever is attainable when the opportunity presents. Unfortunately for us, the Matrix has already arrived, so disarm those agents and download their programs to take this new knowledge into the next area, because you'll be starving for some new play toys upon entering the preceding battle arena, looking for the next contender's weak point, as this sucker attempts to steamroll over you, gutting you from chest cavity down if not careful. So look for those patterns throughout his moveset, because if you play your cards just right, you'll see some fatal flaws in this thing's programming. Searching this wicked war zone from top to bottom will lead you down into the terrorist hideout deep underneath our space colony, where it appears advancements were being made behind the scenes. Perhaps plans were in place to eradicate mankind on the surface for the rise of the robots. Whatever led to these events, just know we need to be prepared for the aftermath, as much of this underground laboratory will require you to have a precise placement and key weapons in hand to clear this structure's many moving parts. There's SWATbots swarming the corridors like drones in the night sky, and biologically engineered creatures that scale the walls looking like something of extraterrestrial origins. Each stage has a unique difficulty spike that requires a great deal of practice and planning due to the confines of the stages. You're going to make a good deal of rookie mistakes, especially with stretches filled with leaps of faith that will require you to simply enter at your own risk. It's moments like this in Stage 3 I'm thankful for the homing shot, allowing you to dive deeper below with a bit of an advanced warning by your missiles, preventing us from getting sidelined without notice. There's some gauntlets that are brutal by the home stretch, but at the same time almost gives those stages the challenge needed for that big fight feel, like you're on a movie set itself. As cliche as that sounds, I do really feel like I'm knee deep inside an alien base, just waiting to be eaten alive. Surprisingly though, your efforts are constantly rewarded with those end stage upgrades and an over-the-top boss encounter. Why powering down a massive computer system would be a reward, you say? Well, because this killer app buried below is riddled with bugs. These exploits are repetitious in their programming, allowing you to again see through their attack patterns to bring down the house every time. It's moments like this that proves no machine can overpower a man on a mission, especially one with the name J. McCrae. Forcing this puppy offline secures access to this Terror Squad's mothership, which will now need to be secured in order to provide somewhat of a future for mankind. While navigating along this Starship Enterprise, you'll find the highest level of artificial intelligence marching throughout the halls. Run through them in style with that fresh new laser cannon of yours, now piping hot, able to break the strongest of interstellar bands. There's plenty of soldiers ready to bring the machine world to prominence, soaring down atop you while the gears that power this mother of all crafts comes to life to score this tiny intruder. As you breach each floor of this craft, you will be constantly tested by overcoming new obstacles and new enemy encounters, replicating as need be as you race to stay on pace, soaring across hovering bridges that lead you into the ship's control deck. By the time you reach the control room, you'll be depleted to all hell, yet you're pumped full of adrenaline as your heart begins to beat right out of your chest. Moments pass, and a massive life form emerges, proceeding to charge up its core to unleash a particle ray upon you. Stretch those limbs for a feat of heroics, timing your jumps in succession as this killer creature's blasts are released upon the room. If you keep your eyes locked to a flickering cannon, you'll see the precise moment to strike, firing at the apex of your jump for a triumphant retaliation. With the mothership crashing down, you'll land this baby down atop the mystery organization's primary operations, a factory full of their best technicians beginning to assemble their latest test models, preparing for the war on Silius. You need to constantly stay on your toes, as it's vital to stay ahead of this auto-scroller to clear the many liquid hot chemicals pouring down in from above these assembly lines. While proceeding ahead, board each cargo that drops in to stay afloat, clearing those crushing compactor arms looking to package you up and ship you off to your final destination. This is one of the best stages by far, just full of wacky hazards that really gets you pumped up to tackle the stage. It feels far less of a chore here, as a majority of the challenge comes in your timing, so if you're a platform fanatic like me, this is the stage that will bring a smile to the already frustrated face, as you now reach the outside walls of the factory, discovering a large cargo carrier hovering outside, waiting to collect its bounty, which will require a bit of remodeling to restore some order to this colony. This is a last-ditch effort by the organization to capitalize on this threat. Continue to crawl below the carrier, watching for the blazing hot turbines that keep this bitch afloat. Trust me, you don't want to get cooked alive before you reach the opposing ends of this carrier. So take your time and equip that fancy new launcher of yours, stuffing some grenades directly into the two primary energy sources, causing it to change course and crash down into this exile once and for all. With the colony secure, it appears all is sound. That is, until you hear something rumbling in the distance. A power source can now be heard turning on, and emerging from the Rebel stands a large exoskeleton, an advanced model that appears to be solely responsible for termination of our very future. Well, whatever this is, I can tell you firsthand, it hasn't finished brewing just yet, and whoever programmed this sucker forgot to finish installing the combat chip into its forehead. He's easily led to the corners of the room where he looks to hand you a metallic fisting. Well, don't be alarmed, there ain't no freak-offs taking place here. Simply wait till he stretches those long limbs a few times till you feel confident to clear his attacks. He'll remain crouching till you perform a factory reset, jumping over this thing, luring him back to the other side of the screen. Continue this back and forth strategy while performing some pistol play, looking over your shoulder to unload on him each time, till this TMFer soon realizes there wasn't a program chip out there to counter the badassness that is J. Flippin' McCrae, sending this wannabe Terminator packing back to Skynet for a final termination. Hasta la vista, you filthy animal. With the colony secure, Jay has fulfilled his mission, not only saving mankind from this latest artificial intelligence threat, but honored his father by fulfilling his legacy, continuing to lead the colony into an age of prosperity. Yet, we should all be mindful, as the relationship between man and machine is complex, codependent on one another, at least for now. And as far as Jay McCrae goes, his story will continue forward into a future where no man nor machine have gone before. Journey to Silius by no means is the second coming of Judgment Day, nor is it looking to be. It's an unfortunate tale of a failed attempt at a licensed movie tie-in, as those working passionately behind the scenes would stop at nothing to see things through to the very end. It's a title filled with wild ambition, going off the plot rails from the very start, which ironically ended up making this journey far greater than anyone could anticipate, especially when comparing this to what we actually got for an NES Terminator title. The adventure excels in capturing atmospheric storytelling across the NES, giving players a fantastic sci-fi experience through an excellent palette of colors and wide range in sound that leaves you pumped, overloading your senses as you lock eyes with those killer sprite designs. A true horror now coming to life, much like the very essence in which they derived from. The stages are well diversified, switching up the settings according to the underlying themes of each act, unfolding before you to play on your emotions, as if you feel the sense of dread coming over you, as coming face to face with the many creatures throughout builds on that tension. Again, this won't be your first choice for a run and gun adventure. Hell, it may not even be your second. What it will be is one that plays on your heartstrings, giving you that sense of nostalgia that many memorable NES games do so well, delivering you a solid gameplay experience, fantastic sprite work, and that oh so satisfying sunsoft sound that plays into the original license concepts perfectly, making this an honorary mention on any NES hit list. It's one to mention in conversation for the enthusiasts looking to widen their 8-bit palette. With that said, it's stories like these that make a console like the NES still discussed today in great length. And speaking of such, I feel we are finally getting into the meat and potatoes of this Sunsoft marathon, and your boy Rockin' Cat has only just begun to get this oven warmed up as we now look to another licensed Sunsoft release that managed to find its way onto the NES, and unfortunately for many of us, in our homes. Perhaps there's far more to this upcoming quest than meets the eye. See you next time, gang.